Hey, Tburrier from Tburrier.com. Today I'm going to talk very, very briefly about 8 things to look at as it relates to your example in leadership. Right? Leading by example is the ultimate. There are many famous voices that would say it's the only way to lead. I think it's a big part of leadership. I think there's a lot more to it, but it's pretty hard to lead without setting the right example, right? Because your leadership is really about your level of influence, and your level of influence is derived by your credibility, and your credibility is a measure of trust of who you are and what you're capable of. And so I know I boiled this down briefly, and I am making this brief, but these are 8 things you can look at. So the first is your countenance, right? How are you showing up, right? How are you coming into a room? What's the vibration that you're giving off? Is it positive, right? Is it friendly? Is it fear based? And there's a place for everything, but fear you got to use so small. But in general, your goal in leading by example is to inspire people, and you to inspire people, they have to feel like, you know what, I'd want to be like that person. And so your countenance is going to have a lot to do with that. And so think about how are you showing up essentially in your energy. Next is your congruence, right? Your integrity. And I look at integrity from the perspective of wholeness, and that is, are you the same person everywhere? That doesn't mean that you do exactly the same things everywhere, right? You certainly do things differently in a work setting in general than you do in a home setting, right? There's different ways to communicate at different times. There's different types of experiences, different type of situations. But are you the same core person? In other words, you can't be this person over here and then another person over here. Because when you're in leadership, right, you are under a microscope, and people are looking at you for what's wrong with you. Now they're not looking at for what's right with you until you overwhelm them with what's right with you, and then they're like, oh my gosh, and then they'll see everything that you do is right. But you have to earn that. That doesn't just happen. And so you have to be congruent, right? You have to be a whole human being everywhere you go. The third is your priorities. Are you living out the things you espouse to be your priorities, right? And that's in both directions, right? So this is a side note. Don't think for a second that your private life doesn't affect your public business life, because it does, right? Because it affects how you show up and affects your interactions in the community, and all that comes back around. And so you have to be living and representing your priorities, not just talking about them. Next is your ethics, right? Are you seen as a person who's ethical? Are you seen as a person that does the right thing, right? That's really, really important, right? I mean, it's not many true leaders who make a big impact stand on popularity because it's not always popular to do the right thing. Next is relationships. What is the state of your relationships? And this is really, really important. Now, these next two are inherent in the 3 circles philosophy for building leadership, and crucial in it. But the state of your relationships is really, really important, not just because it's going to affect your countenance and your joy factor and the way you show up, but it's also going to be visible, and it's part of inspiring. Next is how you take care of yourself, physically and emotionally, right? That is your mental and physical part of your health. Your health picture is so important. First of all, it doesn't allow you can't show up your best way possible. Again, countenance and just the way you show up from an energetic perspective without taking care of yourself. But again, it feeds back as an example from the people that you lead, where they go, wow, I want to be like that person who shows up this way every day, and that's powerful. But again, in the big picture, if your goal is really to serve in leadership, you have to be healthy. Because you just can't be your best unless you are. So that is a big part of it, and you would want to foster that, right? Everything I'm giving you is what you would want the people that you're leading, right, to do. Next is your lifestyle. how you're living. And again, is it congruent with who you are and what you say? Is it congruent with what your priorities are? It doesn't mean that you can't have any fun, or that you can have too much fun. Or it just means that your lifestyle has to be representative of what you believe, right? And what you say that you believe, because that's what people are looking for. Are you who you say you are? Do you do what you say you do, right? And then the last one is respectful. Are you respectful to all people? Are you respectful to all people in the organization? Are you respectful to all people outside of the organization? If you are, wow, you're going to set an incredible, if you pay attention to all 8 of these, you're going to set an incredible tone for your organization. The leaders that you develop are going to be fabulous leaders, and the people that they lead are going to be inspired and grateful that they work for such an organization. So those are 8 things that you can take a good look at to see how you're doing. All right, good way to measure, have a barometer for where you are. I hope this was helpful. If you have questions, feel free to reach out. My email is below. If you want to talk to me about coaching or training for your organization, just let me know. All right, have a great day.